Hi guys, so finally my computer is not being stupid. I have a Logitech I think it's 920 camera, and the software I used to use on my computer, my gaming rig, is just not working lately. Sometimes it just doesn't record anything, and then sometimes it will just record video and no audio. It's just some wacky shit. So I started using it on my Mac, and then I started having problems when trying to record with my Mac, where the audio would have this weird buzzing sound. It was just bizarre, very bizarre actually. So we haven't talked about Sony in a very long time on this channel. Most of you who have supported me over the years remember the good old days. And the good old days were me basically complaining about Sony on a daily basis. I've made God knows how many videos talking about Sony and how they fucking sucked back in the PS3 era. They did very boneheaded things, and to be honest, even to this day, they still don't consider the LI death an actual problem, even though it really is. So now with the PlayStation 4, I bought one day of release. I have not used it in over a year. I actually have my PlayStation Eye camera, which I can show you guys right now. This is the PlayStation camera, or PlayStation Eye. That's what they used to call it, the PlayStation Eye. But I managed to bring this with me when I moved to Vegas, but I never bothered to bring the actual console, which seemed like a stupid idea. So, whatever. But now that we're talking about the PlayStation 4, it originally launched with no backwards compatibility whatsoever. Fuck, it didn't even play music CDs, which is kind of stupid. But Sony has announced that they are going to allow backwards compatibility. However, here's the part where good old Sony hasn't changed their ways. They haven't even bothered to explain how they're going to do it. And if you look at the history of things, Sony is very good at keeping the most important details away from people until the absolute last moment. When they announced the PlayStation subscription, like streaming service, it was originally not even a subscription. When they first mentioned what it could do, they didn't even talk pricing. The way that they were pitching it sounded like you would be able to take your disc, pop it in, and you would be able to play. Like, with the power of Gaikai, you would be able to play every fucking PlayStation game ever made. Obviously, that never happened. Instead, Sony released the PlayStation 3 streaming service, and they charged up the ass originally for it. Even now, it just really doesn't seem like it's doing well. Like, personally, I would never subscribe to it. So now, Sony announces this PlayStation 2 backwards compatibility. However, they didn't explain the details. The only reason why we know it's true and it actually exists is because of a Star Wars bundle that was sold that gave you downloadable games that were PlayStation 2 games. And these PlayStation 2 games are running in an emulator, and an emulator that's doing a damn good job. Digital Foundry explained that the resolution is substantially better, and it's also rendering it at 60 frames a second in most cases. Everything, the character models and everything, just seem at a higher resolution. They're just being rendered at a higher resolution. It's not like any textures or anything have been changed. And it's really looking amazing, and it's playing really great. The only problem is no one's explaining if you're going to be able to just pop a disc in. And just based off of the history of Sony, ever since they released the PlayStation 3, it seems like their concept and idea of backwards compatibility has shifted. When they first released the PlayStation 3, one of the key points they kept talking about was how, backwards compatibility is in their DNA. It's this big, huge ordeal. And the original PlayStation 3, the 60 gig model, which I still own one, it's back in Jersey, unfortunately. It's another thing that I have to get back, but that sucker could play any PlayStation 2 game, no problems. It could play any PlayStation game, no problems. And that's why I've kept the thing around, is because it can play PS2 games. And that was a feature I used quite often. It was especially great when there was this game that I never heard of before, and someone said, "Hey, you really got to play it to get into it." Well, I could just go on eBay, buy the game for like $5, pop it in, and have fun and enjoy it the way it pretty much ran on the original hardware. But Sony took that feature out in later revisions of the console, and it was a feature that they kept teasing would come back in some way, shape, or form, and it did, in the form of downloadable games from a store, which was not what fans wanted. Fans wanted to be able to just take their already existing collection of games and just be able to pop them in and play them. And honestly, with the PlayStation 4, I have a feeling they're not going to give you a disc option. If they do, I will be pleasantly surprised. And I say pleasantly because it's what I want. I want Sony to just release a fucking emulator for the console and allow me to stick whatever PlayStation 2 game I have into it and allow me to just play it. That's what I want, right? I'm sure that's what we all want. And I want them to do it in a way where it doesn't cost us anything to do so. But it just seems that based off of the history of Sony, you look at the whole UMD to PS Vita debacle, they fucked up. With the PS Vita, they had this exchange program within, I think it was Japan only, which you had to repurchase your games. You would basically run this application on your PSP that you'd pop your UMDs in, you would register it with your account, and then Sony would give you the pleasure of paying a slightly reduced price to play them on your PS Vita. And it just seems that Sony just doesn't seem to care anymore about backwards compatibility. Because when they do it for monetary reasons. They don't do it to actually benefit the fan, benefit the consumer. And it just sucks that they're putting a feature that people honestly want behind a paywall. And let's face it, yeah, there are PC emulators, that will play PlayStation 2 games. But the problem is they're not elegant enough. They don't necessarily play these games in a perfect way. They almost always have some sort of glitch, and they almost always it just doesn't run all that well. And I just think that if we were to utilize this emulator that's built into the PlayStation 4, Sony made this emulator from the ground up, and so far the performance is speaking for itself. It's actually a damn good emulator. So it's something that I definitely want to see in the future. I really want to see Sony say, hey, look, this is a new feature. It's added to every PlayStation 4. Every PlayStation 4 will be able to play PS2 games without any subscription service, without anything like that. But thinking about Sony, I wouldn't be surprised if they turn around and say, okay, you can have this backwards compatibility feature, but it's a PlayStation Plus feature. I have a feeling that's another route they might go. It's just that Sony is back into their whole nickel and dime bullshit. Same thing with the online services. Personally, I think Xbox Live Gold and PlayStation Plus should remove the whole you need to have that in order to play online. I really think it's just stupid in this day and age, especially when on PC you can play online for free. So take care, guys. Look out for future content. I should have my PlayStation 4 in the next week or two. I'm hoping. My brother is promising me that he has it all ready to go, that he's going to ship it out to me. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I guarantee the moment I get the system, I'm going to be updating the shit out of it. But I'm also going to be doing some live streaming on Twitch. I'll actually put a link below to my Twitch stream. I might just do some fucking streaming with the Xbox One. I don't have my Kinect here. That's another thing he's going to send. So you guys can actually see my face, as ugly as it is. So, again, I said this again. Take care, guys. Definitely let me know what you guys think.